Let's see another very important concept of OOPs, that is polymorphism. So polymorphism means that the single type entity can be represented in a different types in different scenarios. Like for example, let's say the operator. So the operator can be plus, minus, equal to. There are a lot of operators are there in any programming language. So one operator can be represented in a different types in different scenarios. Similarly, the methods as well. So this concept we call it as polymorphism. So let's try to understand this with the help of example. So this is a small code in Python. So here we have the number 1 and number 2, and the number that we are storing is 10 and 20. And here we use the operator plus. So this operator plus is used to add these two numbers. It will give me the result as 3. So it means this operator plus is used here for the additions. Similarly, in another program, this same operator plus is used for concatenation of the two strings. Like here we have the first string learn and second string is algorithms. So if I use here the plus operator, it will use for concat these two strings. So single operator plus can be used in different operations here, and that is what the meaning of the polymorphisms. So one entity can be represented in different types in different scenarios. Like here in this case, plus is used for addition as well as the plus operator is used for the concatenation of the two strings. So along with that, we can also use the plus operator to join any kind of two strings, or let's say for the merge operations of the two lists. So a lot of operations we can perform with the single operator. So this also we call it as a operator overloading. So we are overloading the operator with multiple tasks. It can be used for additions, it can be used for concatenation of the two strings or joining the two strings, it can be used for merging the two lists. So a lot of things we can do. Similarly, this polymorphism concept will also apply on the methods as well. Like if you want to consider the Java example, here also in case of Java, we use plus for adding the two numbers. Similarly, we use the plus operator to concat the two strings in case of Java. So there also we use the same concept of operator overloading. Now there are few more terms are there, like user defined operator overloading. Like you have seen in this case, these are the inbuilt predefined feature of plus operator. Now, like that, you can use this plus operator to adding the two object as well. And that task we call as user defined task, because user itself is defining that task of adding the two different objects. Here we are not adding the two integers or two strings, but two user defined objects. So let's see an example in this case. So here we have the class, and then we are creating the instance of class here, that is C1, C2, and here we are passing the value as 4 and 5, and we pass this value into the constructor, and here we store the radius here as the radius of the circle with 4 and 5. So in the C1 dot radius we have 4, C2 dot radius we have 5, and now in this case we are doing C1 plus C2. So if you see in this case we are doing the number 1 plus number 2, two integers. Similarly here in this case we are doing the addition of the two strings, but in this case it's a user defined task. We are adding the two objects here, and that task also can be done by using the operator overloading, and we call it user defined operator overloading. So here we do C1 plus C2, and in this case we're supposed to define the function like this, add, in case of the Python, and this will do the user defined task of adding the particular value. Like in this case it's adding the specific radius of this two object instance. So like that we have the different methods that is predefined in case of Python for all the different operators to do the user defined task. Please note that this is the custom operations with the operator overloading, and in case of Java we don't have a support of user defined operator overloading. In case of Python we can do the custom operations with operator overloading, but Java doesn't support it. Similarly, C++ support this operator overloading. In fact, we can do the user defined operator overloading as well in case of the C++, but there are few exceptions are there. In polymorphism concept, we just discussed how operator can be overloaded. Similarly, the function can also be overloaded, and we call it method overloading. So let's try to understand this with the help of example. So consider this case. We have the two methods that is defined in the same class. So method overloading, or you can say the function overloading, is a type of polymorphism in which we can define a number of methods. Like in this case, we have defined the two methods with the same name but with different number of parameters. So like in this case, the first method is having the two parameters and the second method is having the three parameters. So we can pass the different number of parameters with the same name methods in the same class. Or you can say you can also pass the parameters as a different type as well. Like let's say it can be int, then this can be string. So this concept is called the method overloading. Now the question is why the method overload is used. So if you see in this case, let's say you have to perform the addition of a given number. Let's say you have given the two numbers, you have to do the perform the additions. Then you can use this particular method that is defined in the class. Now you have the three numbers and now you are to perform the addition of the three numbers. Then you can use the this particular method that is defined in the class. So that is the use of the method overloading. We can do multiple kind of computations in the same class only. So let's try to understand this with the help of example. So this is the Python example where we have the function that is fun1. So if you see these two functions are within one class, but in the first function we are passing the two parameters. In the second function we are passing the three parameters. The first function we are doing the multiplications of the two numbers, and in the second function we are doing the multiplication of three numbers, and correspondingly we are calling these methods. There is a problem here. So the problem is Python does not support the method overloading on the basis of the different number of parameters in a functions. Like in this case, if you see here we have the two methods and their name is also same. So if you try to call this particular method that is fun1 with 4 and 5, then this won't work because this will override this method in case of the Python. So this call will throw an error. So that's why only this call will work in case of Python. Here we don't support the method overloading. While in Java, we do support the method overloading. So in Java, two or more methods may have the same name if they are differ in the number of parameters. Like in this case, here we have the two methods, their name is also same, but the parameters are different. These methods are called the overloaded method, and this feature itself is called the method overloading. So here we have the one class and the two methods. The first method we have only one parameter. In the second method we have the two parameters. And now if I call the method with one parameter, then it will call this method. If I call with two parameters, then it will call this particular method. In case of Python, it's not possible. It will throw an error because this method will override this method. And now this method only have the three parameters. So you can only call this particular call, but you cannot call this one. It will throw an error. So in case of Java, it will work. So similarly, you can pass the different type as well. Like in this case, if you see you have the two methods within one class with the number of parameters is different. Here we have one parameter, here we have two parameters. In this case, the type of the parameter is different. Like in the first call, in the first method, we have the int as a parameter. In the second method, we have the string as a parameter. And now we can call the integer as well as we can call this method with string. So that's what the concept of method overloading. Similarly, we have the method overriding as well. So method overloading allow a subclass, or you can say the child class, to provide a specific implementation of a method that is already been provided by one of its superclasses, or you can say the parent classes. So what that means? It means, let's say you have the parent and now you have the child. So this method overloading will only works with the parent-child relations. So here we have the parent and then we have the child, that is a derived class. And the parent is using this method. And the name of the method is display. And if you see, the child is also using the same method only, that is display. Now this is called the method overriding. So basically child will override this parent method. So basically child is inheriting the all the methods and variables that is present in the parent class. Along with that, it will take the this particular method as well. But if you see in case of child, it already have this method. So that's why it will override this method. And now it has this particular method that is present in the child only. And now when the child will call the display method, it will actually call the display method that is present in the child but not present in the parent. because it's already overridden. So this is the concept of method overriding.